Okay, here we are. Happy Father's Day, everyone. Happy Father's Day to my baby boy, the one in the
Happy
school.
Father's Day, Daddy.
Yeah, yeah. And I just thought you turned 30 years old next month. That's pretty crazy. How's that feel?
I'm still 29.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, I like that. I'm still 49. So, okay. So I don't want to keep everyone too long because I know it's Father's Day and it's beautiful out. But this is, well, I guess this is the first kind of official one that I'm doing. I'm going to do a whole series of these interviews with people in recovery. I did a short one with Cassie, I think last weekend. It was on her graduation day, and that's where I kind of thought I want to do more of these. So I'm doing another one with a person in recovery who reached out to me, who's interested in talking to the world about their walk in recovery. So that'll happen tomorrow morning at 9. And but this is special. I was actually going to interview my kid yesterday because he was up for Father's Day because he works, so he had to work today. But I forgot, and it worked out perfect because we're doing it
A
on.
nap.
Huh? What?
You took a nap.
I did take a nap. Naps are important. So I'm excited that we're doing it on Father's Day. So happy Father's Day, son. Yeah.
Me too.
So here's what I want to do, son. And you kind of know, you've seen my lectures, we know each other, but the world really maybe knows you or maybe knows me, but they might not know both of us. So what I want to do is talk about first, just kind of a Reader's Digest short version for you. What does recovery mean for you?
Oh, is that a question?
Yeah, that's a question.
I wasn't paying attention. So what does recovery mean for me?
Yes.
So for me, recovery, I don't know, do you want the long answer or the short answer? I mean, recovery for me can just be simply not using substances in my life any longer, choosing to live a different way of life compared to that of somebody who uses, right?
Yeah.
I think in my addiction, I like a lot of people, like that was my entire life, was the addiction, right? Getting, using, finding ways and means to get more. And so just doing the opposite of that and trying to be a regular kind of member of society, somewhat productive. So
Yeah, I like that. So if I'm hearing you correctly, I mean, just kind of a reflection is, and I agree with you as my own walk in recovery, it's living life without the use of drugs and alcohol, right?
right.
And I know you, it's also, making changes that need to be made to be a functional member of society, a functional member of a family. So let me ask you this, because it's Father's Day. What does it mean for you to be a father in recovery?
I don't know everything. I mean, and so, I mean, you kind of definitely know my walk as being a parent and being an addict, an active addiction. So for me, going and shifting into a life of recovery, I think one of my main motivators was to be a good dad. And I think even while using, like, that's all I wanted to be, is I wanted to be a good dad. And so today, I get to do that. I have an amazing relationship with both my boys, um, and it's still one of my huge motivators. What kind of man am I? And I was just sharing the other day somewhere that what do I want my boys to see as a father and as a man, and so I try and do my best and portraying that.
Yeah, I like that. Even my own with you, I said this or wrote this morning somewhere anyway, but I remember your younger days. I remember the day you were born, and the reality is, for me, the day you were born, I was high. Good to
Yeah.
be in the hospital in Puyallup, and I was a functional alcoholic addict at that time, but It was always something I wanted to be a good father. I grew up without a father, you know, and so I've written today that that's my most important role. And so as a person in recovery myself, I want to be kind of your light, and I know that you want to be that for your boys, and you want to show them stability and structure, and for me, I don't want to speak for you. For me, it's also, you know, teaching you that life is not always easy, you know, that life is life. I mean, look at all the crap we're going through, and to be able to manage, you know, of course, not using drugs and alcohol, but also more than that, to be able to walk through life with our head held high, right? And so that's just some of my perspective on being a dad in recovery, and yeah. So let's do this, because I'm going to do this with every person I interview, and it's Tyler, it's whatever your view is on these areas, but I for everyone out there, I kind of have this wheel that I'll put up on a whiteboard, or I'll put up on a screen. I actually have two, and they're kind of one of my mantras if I'm going into my Dr. D role, and the beliefs I have for people in recovery. So Tyler, I want to ask you on these areas, you know, what do you see as important to you in these areas as a person in recovery, and how do you look at these areas? And there's no judgment or anything. I mean, anyone I interview, I'm just truly curious how people look at these areas as a person in recovery. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. So let's talk about family. So what does it mean for you when you look at this wheel and I have family, you're in the middle, and family's out here, actually out there. I was on the wrong side.
So family for me, I think, and I've kind of gone through, and I think a lot of people do, phases, right, in my recovery. And so I think family's always been a big kind of motivator for me. I mean, thinking of my kids, thinking of you and my mom, my grandpa, wanting to, make people proud and not be that failure or whatever, like, but in early recovery, I think that, I had to focus on different parts of my wheel, I guess. Because I remember, and you probably remember too, like we didn't talk as much as we do now. And I was primarily focused on what I needed to do just to stay clean for a day, right? Like, but later on, and even, I would say after my first year, family was extremely important. I mean, it was what I did. I had a family of my own, and that was important to me. The relationship that I was building with you was important to me, and also the relationship with my mother was important to me. So it's definitely a motivator for me.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah, and I like what you said about, what I kind of heard you say is, and it kind of evolves and changes, right? Early recovery, yeah, your and my relationship was much different than what it is today, but it is an important aspect of our walk in recovery, to look at the dynamics of our family and how relationships evolve and change, and where can I as a person in recovery do things different, and where the research is clear that, substance use disorders are a family thing. It's not just about the individual. And I've had to adjust and change as you've grown in your recovery, and the same for you with me. I mean, that's just a reality of family. So let's talk about the next area on my wheel is education. And when I say education, I don't want people to think that if they're listening that I'm talking about going to college or any. It's just education in general. What do you think about when you hear education as a person in recovery?
So for me, just my, I guess, personal walk, and when I hear education, I think of school, right? And for me, before I got clean and immediately after, education was a fear for me. It's something that I was definitely fearful of. I didn't graduate high school. I dropped out at 16. I got my GED at 16. And so by the time I got clean at 24, I hadn't been in any form of school or education in about 8 or 9 years. And so it was really not something even on my radar. I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And that again evolved over time. I got a job in a treatment facility, and in doing so kind of found my path or my desire as far as a career and what I wanted to do. And within that career, it required education. If I would have pursued a different career, my ideas of education might be different, whether it be trade school or on-the-job training or whatever that looks like. I was doing wildland firefighting, and that was something that I was thinking about doing full-time or permanently. So
Yeah, good. And I forgot to ask, I want to ask you on each one of these. So let's go back to family. And for those that don't know, Tyler is a counselor. He works with people to find their path to recovery from substance use disorders. So try to not think in your counselor mode, but think in your mode of just a person, as a human. What would your advice be to someone who's maybe listening to this and just thinking about changing their relationship with drugs and alcohol, or is in recovery? What's your tip or advice, your one tip or advice when talking about family?
I mean, I guess I would be curious as to how your relationship is with family, and in regards to you using substances. Like, how does that impact your relationship with family? Is it positive, negative, neither, neutral?
Yeah, that's good. So just kind of looking at how, like the research says that it's not just the individual it affects everyone. So maybe just asking that question for yourself. Yeah. So what about education? What would be your tip or advice? And broadly speaking about education, not just going to school or whatever, just educating oneself.
So I guess I would focus on, I guess, career to desires or goals, because I don't think that going to school is for everybody. I don't think that going to a trade school is for everybody.
Yep.
I think it really depends on what you want to do, and then looking at, okay, what are you going to need to do? What are the steps, right? And I think that's something that you talk about a lot is, what are the next steps that you're going to need to take for whatever that desire is.
Yeah, good. All right, so the next area on the wheel is finances. I think for a lot of people that start their journey in recovery, and it doesn't have to be people like myself, and I know kind of your walk, we were kind of, less than the bottom as far as finances, but not everyone. But I have that as one of my areas I think is important. So what's your view on your financial health as a person in recovery?
Again, and a lot of things were different in early recovery. I was just focused on staying clean. One thing that I did struggle with though was not knowing what to do when I did have money. I remember one of my first jobs, I worked at a temp agency and I got my first paycheck, and I'm like, I had ideas on what I wanted to do with that money. And it wasn't always necessarily, using or getting loaded.
Right.
It was just
Yeah.
like, I like shiny things. And so I struggled with that. But I think finances can be, especially for me, a huge stressor, one of my major stressors that I have. So I don't know. I'm still working in that area. I don't really have a clear answer for that.
That's okay. And I'm going to, because you're my son and I know it's important to you and you want to grow in that area. And I've seen you have tremendous growth. I mean, the reality is you're sitting in your own apartment, and I know that all your basic bills are paid, right? And friggin' 5 years ago, right, that would have been a struggle. Just like me in early recovery, I had to learn how to, I had some knowledge before, and I think people do, but kind of relearning those skills on how to run a budget and the importance of credit, blah, blah, blah. So what would your tip be to a person who's brand new in recovery when you're talking about finances? If you could go back on your early days in recovery.
Listen to other people, and ask for help, and preferably people who are financially stable to some extent. And I think that's in all areas of my life, reaching out and asking other people. That's a big part of it. So, and I know when I got when I got that first job or whatever, I really relied on people who are around me who are clean on helping me, budget that money or get it to where it needed to go.
Yeah, good. It kind of, when you said that, it kind of goes back to education, right? Yeah. Learning how to manage your money in healthy ways. Just because we get clean and sober doesn't mean we have all these skills. We kind of have to learn new ways of living, so to speak. So the next area, we've just got 2 areas left. I'm going to wrap the last 2 into one. The next area is community. What do you think of when you hear the word community as a person in recovery?
So community for me, this is, and I think one of my biggest, I guess I would say strong points as far as what's helped me in recovery, and that's the community. And when I think of community, I think of not necessarily the community at large, like the city and shit like that, but who I choose to surround myself with, right? That community of people. And for me, what was important is shifting from a community of people who either did drugs, sold drugs, or whatever, to a community of people who no longer did those things and were clean. And surrounding myself and being in the middle of that community, rather than being on the outside of it.
Yeah, and that's that my second wheel, where you're in the middle, and who's in your circle of influence, right?
Yeah.
Who you're surrounding yourself with. That's really important. I like that. So the last area, all wrapped up into one, is nutrition and exercise. What do you think of when you hear nutrition and exercise as a person in recovery?
So I don't know. I think about a lot of my friends who are like, I don't want to say nutrition nuts, but they, it's an important piece of their life, right? They do dieting, they exercise, they go hiking, and they work out, and they go to the gym. That's not me. I like to eat food, a lot of it. And I think it's something that probably later on, it'll be something that I focus on off and on or whatever. But just the basics, right? So like going from using to not using, nutrition is like learning to eat a sufficient amount of food throughout the day. I know for me, when I don't eat, I get grumpy, and I need to be aware of that. And so I get irritable and I might snap at people. But nutrition is not necessarily on the top of my list of priorities, and neither is exercise.
That's okay. That's good. And then, so the next wheel, and we just got about 5 minutes left. I know you have something at 6 o'clock, is your circle of influence. And you've heard me do this lecture before. So when you see this wheel, what's important to you as far as those, and you brought it up, before I even got to this, about who you surround yourself with in your life, just as a whole, not necessarily as a person in recovery, but I know that's important, and that's this topic. But what's important to you when you think about who's in your circle of influence?
So I need, I need people who I can understand and who can understand me. And I struggle with, people who have a lot of negativity, because I tend to have a lot of negativity. So I want to put myself around people who are positive and who can build me up, but also people who are honest with me, and straight up with me, and just real, right? Like I don't need people to stroke my ego or anything like that. And so I try and surround myself with people who are kind of like-minded, but also willing to tell me the truth. So, and also people in recovery. I mean, 98% of the people I surround myself with are in recovery. So.
Okay, good. So, and if I'm hearing you correctly, you want people influencing you who, are going to kind of, I know you a little bit, be real and tell you like it is. I think people in us, for those of us in recovery that have been through some things in life, we have pretty good bullshit detectors, excuse my language. and we can tell when people are just, you know, being how they can be and they're just being human. But yeah, I'm the same. I want people in my circle that are real and compassionate, and for me, you know, that forward thinking that I've learned as a person in recovery as I've continued my walk is I have goals and desires, and I'm a broken record for you. You know, I'm like, where's your goals? I want to surround myself with people that kind of maybe are a little bit ahead of me, right? Maybe that are a little bit smarter than me in some ways, whatever it is, so that I have things to achieve and be pushed toward. So let's wrap this up with this. And if there might be a dad out there listening right now, Tyler, there might be a dad. We've got I don't know, several viewers, and this is going to be recorded and I'm going to post it. What do you say to a dad right now who's thinking about changing their relationship with drugs and alcohol? What do you say to them?
I guess I would just say, take an honest look at the impact, right? The impact that your use of substances and the behaviors that go along with that, because it's not even about just using drugs. We tend to behave differently that interrupts parts of our lives, right? And so I would say, honestly, take a look at that and maybe ask somebody else too, you know, an outside perspective, somebody that knows you, somebody that can see things from the outside looking in. And because I think that's one thing that really helped me, right, is the people from the outside telling me something's not right here, and you might need to make a change, and be willing to listen to that. I guess that'd be it. It's just,
yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever said this. I would love to see you in action in a group, because I know you're an amazing counselor, Tyler. I know that, and it seriously warms my heart to know that you get to help other men. My son works at an all-male inpatient treatment center, and he gets to have a positive effect on other men's lives. So thank you, son, for being on our little interview. This is kind of cool. It's Father's Day, so for our dads out there, happy Father's Day. I'll be doing another one of these tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. With another follower of my page, so join us then. Thanks for joining us. Son, have a good evening. Love you.
Love you too. Happy Father's Day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.